I believe that we are going to talk about relationship and love and all those stuff today. And probably I'm not the right person to talk about these things. But on the other hand, I may be the very right person because this may be a little bit uncomfortable for some of you to hear, but I have many teachers that I have received teachings from. They are, I would say, really Buddha in person. Their kindness, compassion, their tolerance. And in the Tibetan Buddhist tradition, it is believed that the Guru comes in many different kinds of manifestations. So within this context, I will say that I have also learned something so precious and awakening from a girl whom I fall in love madly. I tried to call her last night whether I could mention her name, but she's not available. So right now all I could say is that she's Dutch. Very beautiful, free-spirited. And her parents are kind of like bohemian hippie, you know. So this was when I was around early 20s, and with the permission of my main teacher, and I decided to go to London to study. And for the first time, I left the traditional surrounding where there's things like brocades as a tablecloth, high thrones, attendants, basically really almost like a godly life in one way. I went to London and I was alone. And I've learned lots of things like making breakfast, for instance. And going to supermarket and almost buying a cat food thinking that it is for human beings. So it was a big lesson. Actually, I dare say this, but many younger generation lamas, Rinpoches, really, esteemed high lamas, I think they should go through this. This is what I suggest, actually. It should be in the part of the Rinpoche training curriculum. They should fall in love. And of course, they should make toast and go to a supermarket, so on and so forth. But they should also fall in love. And then this girl should reject him. Because then we know what is suffering. Because until then, when we talk about the truth of suffering, we are always talking about things that's written in the books, like death, old age, sickness, all abstract stuff. Most of the lamas don't know what is meant by paying bills. The pressure of living in the modern society. I have learned a lot, but most importantly, this girl taught me a lot. Because I was completely, madly in love, I think. And because she was very free-spirited, really extremely free-spirited, I would say. I think she grew up in a hippie community. So for her, she was amazingly free-spirited. So sometimes we would travel in the subway, and then she would, nudge me and say, "What do you think of that boy?" Like somebody traveling, just ordinary passenger. And before long, she would be talking to him, and then after a few days, they are already together. Just for a night or two, not long. She discards him also. But, she, in her own way, she was very loyal to me, but it was so painful. And here, I'm supposedly the Lama who is supposed to teach the free spirit, non-attachment, do whatever you want. And there's this girl, jolly, all the time happy, and really giving me a really precious teaching. I must really consider her as one of my awakening teachers. So special, I would say. So I think, in some ways, maybe I could talk about relationship. In Buddhism, I'm sure many of you know we talk about love and compassion. But when we talk about love and what we are supposed to discuss this time, the love, they are different. In Buddhism, and especially in Mahayana Buddhism, well, not only Mahayana, actually, this Buddhism, we talk about metta, karuna. But this kind of love taught in Buddhism is what we call limitless love. Some of you who are familiar with the Buddhist concept of for limitless thought, you will know. In fact, love is the first thing out of 4 limitless practice we are introduced. And the definition of the love is wishing all sentient beings to be happy, and not only to be happy, but to have the sense of gathering the cause of happiness. And such kind of love is aimed at all sentient beings. Therefore, the object is limitless. Such kind of love has no personal agenda. So, from the intention point of view, it is limitless. Such kind of love is not only aimed at acquiring happiness in the sense of, mundane happiness, but this kind of love is really aimed at true happiness, which is enlightenment, or in other words, to awaken from net of delusion. So it is limitless. It's not limited as how we the ordinary concept of love. Those who are coming, no need to do prostrations, okay? Yeah, please. We could have done this in the same place as last night, in front of the holy shrine. And the purpose of moving to post office is so that we can talk some unwholesome stuff. And the prostrations and all of that kind of is maybe not necessary, and beside that, it distracts me. So, the love and relationship. What's the title of love and relationship? Yeah. Okay. What's the title of love and relationship? Yeah. Okay. Love and the relationship that we are, expecting to discuss is really not taught in Buddhism. I have to tell you that. This is why I always think Buddhism is not going to grow so much. Buddhism deals with a truth. Truth is something that generally people are not that interested. Buddhism talks about things like impermanence, illusion. Not many people are interested in those things. So with this, if you go through sutras or shastras, yeah, no problem. Okay, can you hear now? Okay, good. What was it that I was saying? Oh yeah. So, in the sutras and the shastras, there is no mention of marriage ceremony, for instance. This is why Buddhists don't have marriage ceremony, I tell you. This is true. Many traditional Buddhists, like in Korea, in Japan, are becoming Christian now. Because they don't have a good marriage ceremony. It's nice to wear a wedding gown, you know. Bouquets and the music and all of those are important. But Buddhists don't have. And I always say this, if I make a Buddhist marriage, which actually I'm trying to kind of gather some ideas of something related to Buddhist marriage. But if I really do it authentically, it's not going to work. It will be something like the couples in front of me and I say, oh well, you know, things are impermanent. It might not work like after a few days. More likely, Buddhists would have a divorce ceremony, actually. So, love and relationship are not taught as it is an institution that you need. But love and a relationship kind of love is of course taught in the Buddhist teachings, but as a problem, not as something that you need to establish. It is sort of the attitude of the Buddhists talking about love and relationship is always, there's a little bit of suspicion, you understand? If you like, some kind of a suspicion. But of course, the Buddhists know, the people, no matter what, people will still keep on falling in love, people will still get married, people will still strive for relationship. So, one could give some advice on how to have a proper love and relationship, and I guess there is a question regarding the sex. So one could kind of, relate it to some of the Buddhist wisdom. We could discuss these things here and there, and this is what we will attempt to discuss today. And then I went through the questions. There are many questions. I don't know whether we could finish all of them, but we will try and see. I think it is a Korean film. Koreans are so good with the love story movies. You know, they're really good. I think it's a Korean film. I don't remember the name of the film or the director. It's quite a good film I saw long time ago. It's about two maids. Well, a servant and a maid. A servant from one family and another, a maid from another household. And they both serve very affluent, rich family. You know, they do all the household chores. And these two are madly in love. And because they're poor. But what they decided to do is the both family, they're kind of like yuppies, so they have no time staying at home. So many times both families, they're overseas or, not at all at home anyway. So, the real human being who actually stays in the house happens to be the maid and the servant. From both the different house though. This is such a good film. And then they use the house of their boss, which is maybe not the right thing to do, but there's flowers, there's big beds, this, like champagne, wine glasses, or, candlelight dinner, all of that. So they're kind of like, they exercise their love-making, relationship, all of that, in a borrowed place, basically. In many ways, our love and relationship is a bit like that. And the reason is, this is where the Buddhist wisdom comes in. We are all dependent on condition. None of us have control over anything. Forget external things. We can't have a control over what we will be feeling or thinking the next minute. When it comes, it comes. Then it will just blow you, push you, pull you, stretch you, flatten you. We are totally conditioned. We are so dependent. And it's not getting easier. Modern life, modern structure, infrastructure is making us even more dependent on different things and even faster. A rejection from your partner could come instantly in an SMS. You understand? In the past, it may take like a month to walk, but this is no more the case. So our emotion, the stressful life is like a roller coaster. But anyway, the point is condition. The condition, we are ruled by conditions. And trying to have so this is good to be aware of. Trying to have a love, romance, candlelight dinner, relationship within this situation where everything is dependent on so many things. Now think. I think it's quite a good awareness to have this. Because one of the biggest problems with the love and relationship is something called taking things for granted, isn't it? When the couple meet, a week, 2 weeks, fantastic. And then a month for those people who are kind of slow in their thinking, month, even a year, then due to all kinds of situations, stress, responsibility, morality, depression, you end up taking things for granted, especially your partner. You expect, if your partner SMS you every half an hour, and one day this partner, I don't know, maybe she or he has a diarrhea problem or something, I don't know, forgets to SMS within half an hour, then it bothers you, it bugs you. Then there will be questions, why didn't you do it? What happened? All of this. So, I think to have awareness of this fact that we are so dependent on cause and conditions. Everything. That awareness might create a space and a boundary. But fundamentally though, this leads to another point. Love and the intention of having a relationship is very much based on insecurity. Love becomes a complete love when you feel you are satisfied with this notion of being loved by the other side. And I write sometimes film, so there's a different genre that you can write, like comedy, thriller, whatever. Romance. This is something very interesting. If you want to write a romantic film, the core sort of it has to work, right? The romantic film has to work. So what works a romantic story is it has to have a failure. It has to be, it has to have that, the love should not work. Only then the love works. This is interesting. If you look at all the great romantic stories like Romeo and Juliet, the only reason why we loved it was a tragedy. So the love has this tragic. So I guess this is why maybe I shouldn't say this. Let me think about it. I still have to go and do my things. I don't want to be fired from my job. So there's a limit of what I say too. Yes, insecurity. That is like the blood of love, I feel. We love our pet dog, dogs. Do we kind of love our dogs, pet, cats, whatever? kind of much more sort of successfully than our human pet, because dogs don't talk to us. I mean, they do, but we don't understand. So they do few things like wagging the tail and stuff like that. So then, we just, not complicated. But our partners, they talk. And then, of course, you listen and you hear, or you don't listen, and you don't hear. This is a big one. Communication. I was just telling to some of my friends, there is no such thing as communication. This is actually said by one of the great Nyingma master called Jigme Lingpa. He said, the moment we think, it is a confusion, and the moment we say something, it is a contradiction. There is no such thing as communication. There's only two things. There is a successful miscommunication and unsuccessful miscommunication. And when you have unsuccessful miscommunication, you are having a good time. When the misunderstanding is not working, only then you are having a good time. Of course, when the real miscommunication is happening, of course you are. Communication between two partners is so difficult. What they are assuming, what the partner is assuming or expecting or afraid of, we don't know. We can sort of guess based on some of the things that happened in the past. But emotions and the mood is like a weather. It changes all the time. Due to all kinds of things. Hormone, too much sugar in the tea, I don't know. Endless causing collisions, as we talked earlier, because we are so dependent on conditions. We are ruled by conditions. So we will come back to the communication a little bit later, but first, if we have problem with the communication, how do we share things? This is a big one. Everything about relationship is sharing. Now let me be a little bit here. Let me bring some of the Buddhist wisdom or Buddhist understanding of sharing. In Buddhism, there is no such thing as sharing. We can assume that you are all looking at the same flower, exactly same flower as the flower that I'm looking at. But that's only an assumption. What you see, I never see. Not only the direction or the color, but your idea of flower, your idea, the good, all the paraphernalia of this flower. An individual experience. You can try your best describing this to somebody, and this person, your partner, assume
that he or she is looking at the same thing. This is very emphasized in Buddhism. If you read a classic Buddhist text, like the sutras, it all begins with, "Thus have I heard. Once Buddha was here, there," like that. "Thus have I heard." It's a very important statement, because Ananda is saying, "I don't know what he taught, but this is what I have heard." It works like that in the relationship. When two couples in love, they may think that they are sharing this exquisite, blissful moment, but both sides are hearing, experiencing, seeing their own version of bliss or pain or whatever. Now, of course, we are now going quite deep into the Buddhist psychology, but the reason why I wanted to say this is the communication, because in relationship, communication happens to be a very important factor, right? So that, this is why, I think this is why the relationship shrinks can help you, because at least to the certain extent, not entirely, because there is a successful misunderstanding happening between the two partners, you then hire another person who hopefully will hear things and misunderstand unsuccessfully. And then this shrink, psychologist or this therapist would then give his or her own opinion. And many times it doesn't work, but such is the human sort of attitude that we have this habit of fixing things. We like to fix things. We like to mend things. It's kind of like updating your software. Like it's the fun kind of fixing. Of course, it is a pain, but it is also fun. Okay, let's download the latest version, and that's how we end our life, by downloading the new thinking. I will let you ask the questions, but there are a few more things. Then, in the drama of relationship, there's one very powerful mental factor, should I say, that disrupts our relationship. And do you know what that is? It is the burden of having to be nice. This is a burden. This burden. You feel that you have to be nice. Oh my God. I don't know, like opening the door, putting on the jackets. Are you cold? Are you hot? Are you hungry? Do you want to have a little bit of this? The burden of needing to be nice, that kills the relationship many times. Many times. And you know this and you try to be this, you try to be nice. You know, you try to be nice to this person, like, you know, opening the door, I don't know, all of that. Lifting the, if you are a man, then after you pee, no, before you pee, you lift it up, right? If you are man, yeah, after you do your the bigger business, you put it down, things like that. You know, all the small details. In the process, you have taught your partner that's what she is supposed to assume. And one day you are going to fail doing this. And then all the miscommunication begins. But insecurity is still not going to let go. Shall I tell you one of the biggest symbol of insecurity that we have? Ring. Exchanging the ring. And then, human beings could be so ridiculous. Then go to a court, sign it. We are married. These are basically insecurity talking, insecurity expressing. Actually, the whole term marriage, I think, should be changed now. I think the marriage is outdated. It's like last century's term, actually. Now I think you should really call it company. It's for economical reasons, right? And produce maybe children. I think you will have a lesser expectation and probably nicer relationship because you have a less expectation. It's a company. And husband and the wife are shareholder of this company, and therefore you can have a proper meetings and disagreements and agreements and all that. But anyway, these are signs of insecurity. What time is it? Okay, we take a break. Like 10 minutes break. 10, 15 minutes. You may have assumed that I'm kind of anti-love and relationship. That's not true. I'm all for it, actually. Anyway, when the karmic wind blows, if you are not strong enough, we are like a feather in the wind. Wherever the wind blows, there we will be moved. Many of you, I'm sure you think you are in control, that that's it. Now I'm past middle age. Chances of me playing this stupid game of relationship and love is over. This is what you may think, but we don't know. Karmic wind from the least expected place, such as Bolivia or, Rwanda, the karmic wind might blow towards you, and then next you might find yourself madly, truly, deeply, head over heel in love with a Rwandan, Bolivian, Chilean, something that you least expect. This can happen, we don't know. So same with me, really. In my tradition, the lineage that I belong, not really lineage, but in the sort of the custom, I could get married. So when I was around 17, there was a talk about some people saying that I should get married, and people actually sort of suggest, some, suggestions of bride, basically. And I went to my father. My father is quite unique. He himself is a practitioner, was a practitioner. So I asked him, what does he think? He looked at me and said, well, actually my question was, I think, because I was I myself, I thought, until I met that Dutch girl, I thought I was very free-spirited. And, especially when I was 17, 18, I was very much, relationship, love, it's like, it kind of, it's like such a disgusting thing to do, because I was also trained and brought up in a monastic, partly monastery where there were a lot of ordained monks. So I guess maybe that's the influence. So when I went to my father, I asked him, I think I'm going to get ordination. I think I want to become a monk. He looked at me and he said, well, do whatever you like, but if you are asking me, between getting married and becoming a monk and getting married, they are equally difficult. And he said he said a lot of things. He said, well, at least in the married situation, you will be less hypocritical. And that was good. That was very good advice, I think. So I'm not being anti-relationship here, but many times what we are lacking, everything we do is being objective, basically. So we get caught up, we get entangled with a certain value. And this is a big subject, I think, especially in our society, in the Asian society. I know so many, especially girls, the Asian, Chinese origin, by the time they reach around age 25, they get so stressed because they're in the midst of this whole society that is looking at them, why are you still not married? And I really feel for them, because their parents, the older generations, they value the marriage. But the world has changed in many different levels. This modern world is, as much as we like to have relationship, we want to make merry, we want to throw parties, and we want to get together, and we want to rub our shoulders, and we want to, rub other parts of our body and stuff like that. But we also alienate ourselves so much. Really, it's happening, like in every level. I mean, instead, the family used to have no television, so they are forced to eat together. So there's some kind of a relationship at least. Now the family have different rooms and different television in each room, and then they all have different channels, and people have to watch their own favorite program. So we alienate ourselves. Then there's a Facebook, Twitter, fast, sort of broadband methods of alienating ourselves. And then, of course, it's expensive, costly. Relationship is so, not, of course, emotionally it is expensive, but even, financially it can be very expensive. So, but there is this pressure, I feel, especially to the girls in a particular society, that they need to get married. But for all of this, it helps us to be objective. I'm sure, including myself, we will end up doing everything opposite of what we talked today. But it's good to have that objective view about our life. And ideally, remind ourselves this fact, so that we are not, 100% disappointed. Because we build, I remember giving this example. Our life is like trying to put 3 strawberries on the top of each other. You put one strawberry on the top of one, and then you try to put another one. And it doesn't work, because they're slippery and they're oddly shaped. But the problem is, the second one kind of set on the first one. Strawberry. The problem is the second one set on the momentarily, and that gave us some hope. It may work. But life, in general, it never works. It fails. And how many? Some of you younger generations might not be aware of this, but the older generations, we know how many times we tried to fix and have a so-called happily living forever, that situation, the Bollywood experience. How many times we tried to have that? Never really worked. Never really worked. But I like to also say, I'm sorry I'm scattered here and there, but when I remember something, I have to say, otherwise I forget. One should not be afraid of relationship too, If the relationship comes to you, from a very odd corner. I don't know. If it comes to you, you should be confident and accept it. Let the life flow. You will never know. You will, I have actually encountered people who are past, like 50, like both men and women, and then suddenly they find themselves, being admired by, younger people, and then they get so flustered and so, agitated and what to do, and, they're kind of happy, inside, but at the same time they're afraid, I don't look any more good, I look saggy, all of this. You understand? When the karmic wind blows, and I will tell you something, I can't mention the name, this one definitely I cannot mention the name. When I was 7 years old, 7, 8, I had a strong crush with one Rinpoche's mother. She was like maybe around 45. Oh my God. So strong crush. I remember this so clearly. That if anybody is talking to her beside the Rinpoche, the son, I get jealous and I get what is this guy doing? You understand? And many hours and many days I would kind of make story about life with her. So ridiculous, isn't it? She never knew, of course not. But she was very beautiful, I have to say. But many of you know this Rinpoche, so I cannot tell them that. Then I will be really jobless. This could happen to you, and when this happens, you should not be, because the same reason why everything is dependent on condition, the same reason why we should not blindly fall for the value of relationship, with the same reason why we should not be afraid of the relationship also. If it comes to you, tomorrow if you find yourself some, and if you like this person, no, of course, if this person is sleazy and, not your type, then of course you either skillfully or directly avoid. But if you have a certain, what is it? A lizard or butterfly in the belly? What do you call it? Yeah, butterfly, right? Butterfly. Yes. If there's a butterfly in your belly with, upon seeing this person, well, by all means go for it. But from the day one, make sure that you will not be trapped by expectations and hope. From the day one. If you do that, I think you will have a proper relationship. So, actually, I was telling you earlier, Buddhist marriage, couples about to get married, not a bad idea if the priest says, well, we never know what will happen to you two. You may even fall apart tonight. That may be not a bad idea to express this. It may sound very inauspicious. It might, worry some overly protective in-laws, but maybe it's not a bad idea to actually talk the truth about separation and, fragility of so-called marriage and relationship, and and anyway, something more practical now. I think maybe we talked too much about all this, but something more practical. So, let's say you already have a boyfriend or a girlfriend or a wife or a husband. You are stuck, basically. Let's say you already have. Now what do we do? Now after we discuss this, should we go ahead or should we all become monks? Remember, I've given you the example. That, I would say, if you already have a partner, I think it's important to remember in Buddhism, the whole idea, especially in Mahayana Buddhism, the core purpose of practicing the Mahayana Buddhism is to give liberation to all sentient beings. Liberation. Liberation means freedom, basically. And many times, giving freedom to so-called all sentient beings is a bit like building a ladder to the sky. It's almost abstract. It's like unthinkable. All sentient beings? Maybe my neighbor, yes. Or maybe like few hundred, maybe. But all sentient beings, that's a bit too much. It's like an abstract. But even though one may not be able to liberate and give freedom to all sentient beings, we can at least start with giving liberation and freedom to one's own partner, husband and wife. And that's very practical advice, I must say. Many times, when we are having relationship, it's basically strangling each other, choking each other's. And that's not a relationship. You should really give freedom to each other. Who your husband or wife or boyfriend or girlfriend texting to, who he or she is hanging around with, freedom, give space, freedom. And I think this is important. Actually, even if you have a really good relationship, I would suggest to retreat yourself from your husband and wife or a boyfriend or a girlfriend at least 1 hour a day. Don't talk, don't text, don't communicate, nothing. I think it would help. Anyway, lastly, I will conclude this so that we can go on with the questions. Shakyamuni Buddha himself said, we must all treat our life, our so-called family life, whatever, as an experience of Drankang means like basically hotel. It's like a hotel. In the big hotels, people check in and people check out. You understand? This is how it is. Our life is like that. New friends check in, old friends check out. You understand? And this is such amazing teaching because this is how our life is. If you can think that this is the beauty of temporariness. Temporary stuff are so nice. It's very blissful and it's beautiful. When things are stagnant and forever, it stings. You should think that this life with my husband, wife, boyfriend, girlfriend, this is it it is very temporary. Even though you may not break up for this breathing life, one of these days, one of you will have to die. And when you die, you go separate. After you die, probably for 3 days, you may remember your wife and husband's name. By the 4th and 5th day, you will only remember the half the name. By about the 10th day, you don't even remember whether he was he, or she was she, or maybe he is she, maybe she is he. Then by around 20th day, you don't even know that that is a human being. Then the next life's force begins to creep in. For instance, if you are about to reborn as a bird, your love and admiration, sort of always wanting to smell your boyfriend, girlfriend, whatever, that's being replaced by feeling famished when you see a worm. Because you are about to become a bird now, and feels like, flying and so on and so forth. And by then, so-called your beloved husband, wife, boyfriend, girlfriend, that chapter is closed. And the next time you see, you might reborn as a pigeon and sit, eat, breadcrumbs, next to your ex-wife or ex-boyfriend or girlfriends, in front of you. You will not even notice. And he or she will also not notice. And that's how we sort of play. The samsaric games is this, It will be amazing if we can actually go somewhere up there and look down at every life that we had in previous lives. In fact, this is what arhats, they can do that. They go up and they look. It will be just so sad and happy and joyful and just amazing. How many people must have hanged themselves for the love of you? How many people have starved for the love of you? And you yourself, how many times you have hanged for loving, for the sake of love and relationship for others? So, remembering the temporariness. And this is not only for the relationship, everything. This cup of coffee could be my last. This book that I'm holding could be the last book that I'm holding. And if you can have that kind of mindfulness, then you begin to really enjoy and love. Really, wow, what a good book. Because otherwise, we are always thinking about the next thing. Planning to live forever, basically. Anyway, what did Shakespeare say? Parting is what? Yes, I think he's right. Sweet sorrow is basically love and relationship. The pleasure of living in the modern society. I have learned a lot, but most importantly, this girl taught me a lot. I have
because I was completely, madly in love, I think. And because she was very free-spirited, really extremely free-spirited, I would say. I think she grew up in a hippie community. So for her, like, she was like amazingly free-spirited. So sometimes we would travel in the subway, and then she would, nudge me and say, "What do you think of that boy?" Like somebody traveling, just ordinary passenger. And before long, she would be talking to him, and then after a few days, they are already together. Just for a night or two, not long. She discards him also. But, she, in her own way, she was very loyal to me, but it was so painful. And here, I'm supposedly the Lama who is supposed to teach the free spirit, non-attachment, do whatever you want. And there's this main teacher, and I decided to go to London to study. And for the first time, I left the traditional surrounding where there's things like brocades as a tablecloth, high thrones, attendants, basically really almost like a godly life in one way. I went to London, and I was alone. And I've learned lots of things, like making breakfast, for instance. And going to supermarket and almost buying a cat food, thinking that it is for human beings. So it was a big lesson. Actually, I dare say this, but many younger generation lamas, Rinpoches, really, esteemed high lamas, I think they should go through this. This is what I suggest, actually. It should be in the part of the Rinpoche training curriculum. They should fall in love. And of course, they should make toast and go to a supermarket, so on and so forth. But they should also fall in love, and then this girl should reject him. Because then we know what is suffering. Because until then, when we talk about the truth of suffering, we are always talking about things that's written in the books, like death, old age, sickness, all abstract stuff. Most of the lamas don't know what is meant by paying bills. I believe that we are going to talk about relationship and love and all those stuff today. And probably I'm not the right person to talk about these things. But on the other hand, I may be the very right person because this may be a little bit uncomfortable for some of you to hear, but I have many teachers that I have received teachings from. They are, I would say, really Buddha in person. Their kindness, compassion, their tolerance. And in the Tibetan Buddhist tradition, it is believed that the Guru comes in many different kinds of manifestations. So within this context, I will say that I have also learned something so precious and awakening from a girl whom I fall in love madly. I tried to call her last night whether I could mention her name, but she's not available. So right now all I could say is that she's Dutch. Very beautiful, free-spirited. And her parents are kind of like bohemian hippie, you know. So this was when I was around early 20s, and with the permission of my